Well, if you're talking in terms of like co-op, I work visa with you before the like because you come to Canada with a study permit and a work permit, right? So I came to Canada with
Okay, so I guess the microphone's working. And it's working in here, out there in chat, in synchronous world. Can you hear me? And it looks like you can see me. Let's just see camera. Switch camera. Off. Okay, now. Okay, can you see me now? It's not that crucial, but okay. Now, how do I do all this? Share screen, so I need to go to up here. Oh, damn it. Right. Okay, I made some last minute adjustments to what I had intended on doing today, so I just have to add them. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the final group literature submission and the course reflection. I've covered all the material for all intents and purposes. There's not going to be new material as such, no new content, but I want to walk through mostly the course reflection, a couple of points about the final submission. And so that's what we're going to do. And in order to do that, I need a couple of more documents that I just prepared. And add and business. One more. Okay, so now I load and we are off to the races, I think. Okay, and then I want this over here. So this is a question for the people on the internet. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation now? Great, thank you. So as I just mentioned, today I'm not going to introduce any new material. I'm going to discuss, I think very briefly, the group literature final submission. If there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then I'm going to spend some time on the course reflection. So that's the plan for now. So I will continue to monitor the chat. I plan to continue to monitor the chat, but if you put something in the chat and I don't respond, maybe you could turn your microphone on for a second, just to let me know that there's something in the chat. I'm afraid I'm still not yet accustomed to systematically checking all of that. So the first thing I want to call to your attention, I wasn't able last week to demonstrate in class online how to get the Adobe Suite. And I sent an email to the tech people. That didn't work out, but I found this on my own, and I think it is the right answer anyway. So if you click on this link, let's see what happens if I oh, that's fucking useless. Great. So, Jesus.
Was the date changed for this? Because it was April 12th before, now it's 18th.
Yes, it's changed. Now I can. So I think you have to. So in order for this link to work, you have to be logged into to MySeneca already. Once you're logged in, then this will open and it will provide you with a link and instructions how to download onto your laptop the Adobe Creative Cloud suite of software. And in that, and once you have that on your laptop, then you're in a position to be able to produce the final submission the way it needs to be produced for the course. And so this was the information that I said I'd get. And it worked fine on my laptop in my office, but once again, up here, it's not 100% clear that that worked. I will then pursue this a little bit further. I'm confident that this works. None of you seem particularly worried so far, so I'll keep moving. So what I want to discuss is the course reflection, and so now I've got to try this. Okay. So now back to, I need to consult again with online. Do you have online now the Word document version? You don't have it here, but now you do. So is the Word document online? Okay, thank you, Mariam. So let's walk through this. The assignment calls on you to offer a mature, reflective, and personal written account of your experience, etc. We're going to come back to this, but I was planning on doing this anyway, but in the last couple of weeks, another issue has sort of bubbled up in the program, ChatGPT. It's only bubbled up in the last couple of weeks on my radar, but I gather it's been bubbling for a little bit longer. It's not unusual for this stuff to come late to me. And so I asked ChatGPT to provide an answer for this question. And so I'll show you what it said.
What's ChatGPT?
Oh, I'm so glad you don't know. Huh. Do you know what ChatGPT is? How would you describe ChatGPT?
Generic. It's very easy to tell that it's been stolen from somewhere.
It hasn't been stolen from anywhere. It's been
No.
stolen from everywhere.
No, yeah, like what it.
And even stealing is difficult. I think it's stealing, but
It is stealing, there's no doubt about it. Like when it comes out, like I've read the stuff it puts out, and you can very easily tell that it's not something or not me, like any human would have written. It feels very professional to an extent to
who do
which,
you think writes professional stuff?
Is it like
Before
AI?
ChatGPT, yeah,
Oh,
it's an AI thing. It's the AI thing that's in the news. It was on the news today, and in high schools and even in elementary schools, they're worried about this now. And so, but it's a problem. So, but I want to take a look at the answer.
there's a lot of AI stuff coming out.
Yes,
Siri.
save. Here. So this is what ChatGPT had to say. I'm having, so as I reflect on my experience in INS 400, I've asked ChatGPT a similar kind of thing for a different course.
Okay.
And one version of it said, I'm a robot, so I don't have experiences, but, and then it went on to do the same thing. So sometimes ChatGPT, it's a machine, right? So it's like a photocopier or a fridge or something along those lines. If you set it at X number of degrees, it'll go to that number of degrees. You open the door and the warm air comes into your fridge, the compressor comes on, and you go on up. So Miriam, I'll come back to this. We'll go through this, and then Miriam just put a thing in chat. So I'm gonna go through this for a while, and then if you could remind me to take a look at the submission, we'll see about that. So now, Adviti says it's very easy to identify this as a machine generated document, but I'll just have to disagree, at least from a couple of different points of view. If a student submitted this work, I wouldn't be able to prove that they didn't submit that work. And it's an open-ended issue around academic integrity as to what exactly the mechanism available there is. Do you have to prove you wrote it, or do I have to prove you didn't write it? And it's unclear to me. And I didn't get into this line of work to be part of the cheating police. So I'm doing this, and I don't have yet any, as far as I know, I mean, I don't have any clear direction from management about exactly what's going on this front. I've had many submissions in other courses, let's just say, that I'm sure were generated by ChatGPT. And under some circumstances, students can just take this and then throw in a mistake or two, add to it a mistake or two to make it look like, or to do what they imagine is required to make it look like they wrote it, either to trick me, and I'm not taking any of this personally, either to trick me, or alternatively, I don't think yet that this is happening, but it's coming, in order to be able to at least sow a bit of doubt in the event that there's I forget even what it's called, a review of the thing. So if I say if a faculty member claims about a piece of work submitted by a student that it was plagiarized, the student can disagree. There's a mechanism in place in order for the student to be able to defend the claim that they wrote it themselves. And so, I mean, it's other faculty, although it's been a long time since I've never had this happen to me where a student complained about me, but I've been on a panel where a student complained about a faculty member allegedly mistakenly having accused them of cheating. So I've been on the panel, but it was like 6 or 7 years ago. And there was no student representation back then at that level. I think there's a couple of levels, and I think downstream, and also I know that it's been changed at least a couple of times since I was involved. But that all of these procedural things aren't changing as fast as the availability of this AI technology. I want to take a look at the AI answer in order to discuss a couple of features that I think are going to help the students if they think about what I'm calling to your attention, how you can do a better job at producing your own version of this. And then there's a sort of, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat at the end of this, but I'll just do it now. I put this answer, so this is I copied this answer from ChatGPT. I put into ChatGPT the exact question I asked you, and I said, can you provide me 1,000-word answer to this writing prompt? And then it pumped this answer out. Then I asked ChatGPT, can you tell me if ChatGPT wrote this answer? And I copied the answer back in, and ChatGPT said, yes, ChatGPT wrote this. So I don't yet know how to automate it, but if I suspect that the work I'm grading is generated by ChatGPT, I will just put it into ChatGPT and then I'll know. And now at this stage, I'm pretty sure, I absolutely hope this doesn't happen. But if it does happen, I'm just letting you know ahead of time. If you challenge me, like if ChatGPT tells me that the work you submitted is written by ChatGPT, you're going to get 0 on the course reflection, right? I'm looking at you only because you're the only ones here, not because I have any reason to believe that you're going to do this, but you'll get 0 on the assignment, and a note will go in your file according, that says you cheated, and that's not good. I'm afraid that I'm not up to full speed on the procedural dynamics there. My understanding, which it'll be up to you to check, of course you can avoid all this by just writing your own answer. But I think what happens is, well, I know what used to happen, and I think this is still the general thing. If you're caught cheating and it goes on your record, when you graduate, if you don't cheat again, the notice disappears. But if you do cheat again, both of them show up on your record. And I think on the second time you get suspended, or I forget exactly what the details are. I don't think it's a very good system. I know the college takes every aspect of this seriously. All of the colleges do, for lots of obvious reasons that don't fit especially well together. So it's a messy process. And we know there are students, or we believe, we know that there are students who are just clever at this and who are getting away with it, and that it's in many ways it's unfair how it ends up happening, and this makes it much more difficult. But now that I've found out that ChatGPT will say that it generated the answer, for now anyway, It's a get out of jail card for me. So if now another thing I would like to call to your attention is that I have a lot of your writing samples. And so on the discussion boards and on the assignments, I see what your writing looks like when you don't put it through ChatGPT. And so it will look, if all your other work looks very different from this, and all of a sudden for your final submission, you write like a
what I was
university
trying to say.
professor. I beg your pardon?
That's what I was trying to say, because when I read this, I was like, yes, like it's very nicely written, it's good, it covers the points. But if I do not write like this normally, and then if I just give it to you, you're of course going to know that, okay, yeah, something is wrong here.
Right, yes, exactly. Now, the students, there are students, there are students in the INS program, there are students who are doing their bachelor's who produce work at least close to this. It's, so, but there are loads of students who don't. And so if you're already able to produce this kind of work, I don't know why you'd bother cheating, but except it's so insanely easy. It really is like finding money just sitting on the floor. And so, but right now, there's no institutional mechanism to avoid this, but I do want you to know that I put it through ChatGPT, owned up, they admitted they did it. And so with ChatGPT anyway, there may be other ways of doing this. And prior to ChatGPT, the main concern that the college had, at least the main concern they communicated to faculty, was that students can buy this stuff. You can send this to, there are companies that will produce this for you, and that ChatGPT won't be able to tell. But I might, if you, back to my other thing, I've got all this stuff you wrote, and many of you were not as careful as I had hoped in sort of refining and cleaning up and submitting stuff that looks like this. So I'll know, it'll call my attention to what it is you're producing. And so, I mean, the long and short of it is, any answer that looks like this, especially those where the other work you produce does not look anything like this, it doesn't take long at all for me to cut and paste, to cut it in, put it in ChatGPT. If it's, yes, ChatGPT wrote it, you get 0 and we go down a rabbit hole of complications that I absolutely don't want to do, and that none of you want to do either, I'm sure. So that's the sort of the academic integrity component of it. Another aspect, though, that I want to call to your attention that is not new material, but it's connected to what we're talking about. So I want to take a look at this answer here. As I reflect on my experience in INS, blah, blah, blah. So it says, belonging is a complex concept that is difficult to define from a social scientific point of view. That sentence is right out of the course, out of the question. Using the language of the question is a very good writing strategy. In a certain way, that's how Oprah Winfrey got to be a billionaire. She turned questions, so she would interview people and she would make them feel at home by repeating back to them the stuff they said to her. And so they'd let their guard down, and Oprah used a well-known rhetorical strategy, well-known at least since Roman times, that's a good strategy to bring your reader into what it is you're writing. And so that's a good AI trick that is easy for non-AI, i.e. humans, to write. But what's missing from this is any personal details. What's it like for you to belong? Not what is it like in general. Belonging is a complex concept that's difficult to define from a social scientific point of view. But as we discussed at the beginning of the semester, as I discussed anyway, at the beginning of the semester, and there was a little bit of and that kind of thing. Many of us have had the experience of belonging, and although we recognize and we acknowledge that it's difficult from a social scientific point of view, which would occur to almost nobody who's not aspiring to adopting a social scientific point of view. Many of us know what it feels like when we feel it, or many of us know what it's like to feel it when we're not feeling it. We don't really know what it feels like to belong until we feel like we don't belong. And once we feel like we don't belong, homesickness only comes really clear to people when they're away from home. While you're still at home, 4-year-olds who've never been anywhere, most 4-year-olds, there are, of course, a very sad reality that not all families are loving families, but when it's working even moderately well, 4-year-olds aren't homesick until they go to kindergarten. Right, and then it's only at kindergarten that they realize that they can be homesick, and so a sense of belonging is a deeply personal thing that has to do with your own inner experience that is, by definition, unavailable to an artificial intelligence, syntactical, language-based, blah blah blah. Now, the way that you can go about demonstrating to me that you've written it rather than the AI machine is you say things like, growing up in wherever you grew up, add specific detail that a machine wouldn't have available to it. Now, I think machines can probably do that, but I'm not going to go down that road. Right, so add specific detail. I'm going to amend, so the other thing I want to let you know, I'm going to amend in some small ways the description of the assignment as it currently exists. I'm going to amend it after class today, only in order to make more clear the guidelines that I'm going to develop right this morning with you around the specificity. I'm going to make some suggestions about ways that you can make your answer more specific, not for the purpose of escaping AI detection, but in order to clarify the intention of the question as it originally occurred to me. And in a sense, the benefit of seeing the AI answer is going to make it easier for me to clarify for you what it is that I'm looking for. One of the challenges that students often presents a writing challenge is it's a kind of permanent writing challenge to find an appropriate and an effective balance between the general and the particular. And so you don't just want to say, well, on Thursday, June 7th, 2011, I was very sad. And then I was, like just some super narrow, tiny little thing. For the purpose, if you're writing a poem or something, maybe that all makes sense. But for a course like ours, a personal reflection is meant to be an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you can connect the general principles we've been discussing to your own individual particular perspective. So it's not going to be enough to include personal detail. You're going to have to include personal detail that you can connect to some parts of the description of the assignment. So I want to go back now. So Miriam writes, right, so one of the challenges, Miriam, is I don't think you could write everything in 10 pages, but if you could, then you could be the president of Harvard University next week. Certainly, it's one of the challenges is that you're going to have to limit yourself. And so, of course, I don't want to trivialize any of this, but you need to make difficult decisions about what particular aspect of your personal experience will best allow you to write an answer that demonstrates to me that you fulfill the requirements of the assignment, which are not to tell me your whole life story, not because your whole life story isn't important in itself, but because this is a different thing. And so does that answer your last chat? Okay, good. Now let me just roll back here.
How did the AI know that it was writing for an international student?
I suspect I included that. I did include that in the course description or in the assignment description. So we'll go back and take a look at the assignment description. Maybe. Great. I know. There's new share. No.
Reading this answer, I'm just scared now.
What's that?
Reading this answer, I'm just scared now because this.
Yes. Well, you should be. This is a scary thing.
No, because when I arrived in Canada, I felt like an outsider and it took me some time to find my place in the new environment. I missed my family and friends and I struggled to adapt to Canadian culture. That is very scary for an AI to write.
Yes, I agree 100%. It's scary in a big way.
Mhm.
I think in the biggest way I can imagine. But it's scary in a small way also in that, yeah,
Yeah, I've taken over.
yes, that's the big level thing. But what's missing is any personal detail. So I mean, this is why I asked you about tech. This is what's been on my mind for the last month or two, ever since I tried it. I'd heard about it, but I thought, whatever, how hard can it be? But now I tried it out and I've seen what it can do, and it's super impressive.
I've used ChatGPT for like idea generation. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, one of my other courses was like make a presentation about something in 5 years. So I was like, okay, the main choices are going to be taken. So I asked, like, I'm like, give me an idea for this, and it said sustainable energy. I was like, that's a pretty good idea, and so I use that. I use it mostly for idea generation rather than generating essays.
Right, well, and there are a couple of gray areas around the extent to which it's cheating. Even the vocabulary of cheating is no longer nearly as widely used in post-secondary in the management of post-secondary institutions for a bunch of reasons. One of the, so for a bunch of different reasons, they describe it as academic integrity. But when they made the change, the way it happens in all bureaucracies, they use an acronym right away. And the acronym for academic integrity is AI. And so they began talking about AI meaning academic integrity. And initially I thought they meant artificial intelligence. But the irony, the bureaucracies are anti-irony machines. So the sense of humor gets sucked out of every pore of every interaction. And nobody to whom I brought this up did anything about it anyway. So they continue to call it AI, even though AI is destroying, artificial intelligence is destroying academic integrity. Because this isn't just for students. There are loads of professors who can't write this well. Or, I mean, it takes a while to be able to write this well. AI does this in 45 seconds. Like it's astonishing. I remember the first time I went, oh my God, it really is nutty. But I think what you did is perfectly legitimate. I don't think that's cheating at all to use the software for that. What makes it difficult is this is the wrong kind of answer to demonstrate. This is a response to the wrong kind of answer to demonstrate one weakness. I asked it a whole bunch of other kinds of questions that some of them were much more specialized in philosophy. And it generated an answer that didn't look like the way a philosophy professor would answer, because it didn't refer to other philosophy professors' interpretations. And it didn't have footnotes, right? And philosopher professors in the humanities and in the social sciences especially, we think in footnotes, we write in footnotes. Our argument, we recognize our argument as stronger when it has a footnote. We're not trying to be original. We don't think there's such a thing as original. What we want to do is show you were wrong about your argument. And so I'm going to talk about your argument mostly. So, Professor Jones, that fuckhead, we don't write exactly like that, but we go, I was unconvinced by, meaning it's totally stupid. And then that's how professors write. Maybe they can tune it up like that, but what makes it cheating in part is that none of the sources that the AI collected this information from are at all cited. And so this is produced by scanning billions probably documents of work that people got paid to do, work that they had copyright over, but that gets transformed a little bit or a lot. And so the notion of copyright is under tremendous pressure now. I'm happy about that, actually. I think copyright is a terrible way of doing what copyright claims it's doing, and a great way of doing what it doesn't claim it's doing, which is make the rich richer. But that's a separate issue for now. What I want to, the sentence you identified is a great example of what's missing, of exactly what's missing from this answer that I'm looking for from your answer. So as an international student, my experience of belonging has been shaped by my cultural background, language, and social identity. What I want is, or what I'm proposing to you is a solution to the problem, is substitute in for cultural background the substance of your cultural background. Substitute in for language the language that you either feel, the language you think in, or the language you make jokes in, or the language your grandma sang to you in, whatever the substance of it is. If you include that, then it becomes personal, and it produces and it reproduces that part of belonging that is so difficult to define and to even touch from a social scientific point of view. It's so easy, like the example, a low stakes example that I think is helpful. It's helpful for me to imagine this is what it's like for a child on their first day at daycare. I remember when I took my daughter, my wife and I took our daughter to her first day of daycare. She didn't even turn around. She was 100% down. She wanted to go to school so much. She loved it. But some of the other parents, they had to drag their kid. The kid was hanging on. Not all the kids were as keen to go to school as my daughter was. But the scariness of it, the otherness of that daycare, for many of the kids in her daycare class went away. Many of them, it went away that day. So there's some of those kids who were crying to stay home with mom. At the end of the day, they were crying to stay at the daycare center. There was some one thing, or some 10 things, to put a number on it is almost exactly the opposite way. But they were able to find something in the daycare, another kid, a blanket, a sandwich, a kind word from the daycare people, something there allowed them to feel like they were at home enough that they adjusted super quickly to this totally brand new surrounding. And then, so many people are able to find that sense of belonging. But when they're 3 years old, I think my daughter might have, I forget even what age it was, it would have been younger than 3. Like obviously not much younger, but they don't yet have the cognitive ability or the imagination to be able to describe any of this, but they definitely experienced it. And how do we know? Because they're not crying anymore. They want to go back the next day and the day after and the day after. And then, you know, if Jimmy's mean to her one day, then maybe the next day she doesn't want to go back, or things can change, of course, but this belongingness, the substance of it is often, at least in part, deeply personal, not quantifiable. If there's an affective, subjective component to it. But on reflection, we can identify, we can name, we can point to some of the components of that subjective substance that we associate with the feeling of belonging or the feeling of not belonging. So another sentence, the course has helped me understand the intersection of migration, citizenship, and belonging. Excellent starting point. What you need to do is add some substance to those general categories.
Almost like a template.
It now occurs to me that that's a problem. So next time I do this, I will think it through. Yeah, so Atia, I just saw Atia's point. Yes, like a personal experience that a machine can't generate. But I don't want you, I'm learning this right now. So I don't want you to try to come up with, I'm hoping that ideally none of this would have been necessary, and maybe none of this was necessary. I'm not convinced, but I don't want, I want to put in place the conditions that will allow you to engage this. So I don't want you to write the best essay that looks the most like it's not cheating or anything along those lines. I want you to really do the description, but the description is meant and was meant, and I'm going to amend it a tiny bit in order to make clear and to perhaps give some more specific guidelines about the nature of the detail that I'm looking for. I'm going to go back now to. Yes, exactly. Well, yes, add specific details instead of being vague. I don't think vagueness is the problem. It's a level of generality. So claiming that the course has helped me to understand the intersection of migration, citizenship, and belonging. That's not the problem. There isn't that it's vague. It's that it's far too general. What are the points of intersection in your experience between migration, citizenship, and belonging?
I agree with her. She said it's like a template. It really does feel
Yes.
like a template. And you need to add, because it provides you a general list of what you need in order to write a successful essay. Like if people don't look too much into it on surface, it's great. But then the moment somebody starts to read it, it's very easy to pick out a few specific points where it doesn't feel like.
Well, we'll see how easy, but yes, I agree that I think that's right.
I'm saying
Yeah.
in the context like you know how some of us write in general. And then if none of us write like that anymore for only one assignment for the entire course of the semester, it's going to be easier to detect, right?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And so, okay, now, so let me go. I'm going to now go back to. So is the I can't tell. Out there in internet cosmos, is the PowerPoint presentation back on the screen now? Okay, thank you. So be specific. You know you're not a robot. So what I'm looking for is I want your response to include specific aspects of your experience. But I want to also add, I want to find, I'm not sure, it's a difficult balancing act. There's no part of your personal life that is any of my business at all, right? So I want to be clear, I'm not asking people to divulge personal details of their lives. You don't need to inform me of terrible things that have happened to you or fantastic things that have happened to you. What you need to be able to do is identify aspects of your personal experience that correspond to the course contents. If you're comfortable with, writing about some particular part of your life, then that, of course, that is absolutely fine. And that is consistent with what the course is about and with what this assignment requires. But first of all, there's absolutely no requirement on your part, far from it, to divulge anything at all. So secondly, I can't check, right? How would I know if you were, if something happened? I'm neither inclined to do it, nor am I in a position to do it. What you need to do is find the kind of experience that, had you experienced that experience, would qualify for the assignment. Okay, so what program, and examples of questions that you can ask yourself in order to generate some specifics. Well, what program are you in? Why are you studying that program? Why are you studying it at Seneca? More or less all of you could have gone somewhere else to study either this program or a relevantly similar program. Some of you live in the neighborhood, others you live, other than going to Seneca, you live on the other side of the planet. And so those are options for specific details that answer that question, why you are here. I'm here because it's an 8-minute bus ride away. I'm here because for whatever other kind of reason it is. And the excuse that might be required of some of you is to avoid GPT detection. But my explanation, my motivation as a professor in this course is to get you to reflect on the experiential component of your experience as it's connected to belonging, as it's connected or not connected to citizenship, and as it's connected to the world, the globe, the global reality within which our course and your lives are in part the directed by or subject to, in a way. Another component that is a new experience for me and for some of you and for the college is the synchronous and asynchronous and in-person combination. How does that affect our sense of belonging? Classrooms are, especially on a post-secondary classrooms in a program like INS, are different from other programs where the students are always together. So INS courses, most of them anyway, include a fairly high number of students from other programs. And so when you're in a class with students from other programs, it's different from when you're in a class with all students in your own program. It's easier to have a sense of belonging when everybody in the classroom, first of all, is in the classroom, but secondly, are all studying the same thing. But as easy as it is comparatively, it's still difficult because it's more difficult at Seneca, say, than it is at the University of New Brunswick. At the University of New Brunswick, where it used to be the case, I have friends who went there, and I think it's still the case, but a lot of people, a higher percentage of people live on campus, and a higher percentage of people back then anyway, were from away, so you're sort of stuck together. And when you're stuck together, many people find a way to make connections with the people they're stuck with. And then a small percentage of people feel excluded systematically, and some of them are okay with that, and others quit, or, or are miserable. So you get an insider and outsider group. There's a fairly recognizable dynamic, but none of that, that happens to a lesser degree at a campus like ours, which is a commuter campus. Most people come in for their classes and then leave. That was when we came to class. In our program, in our course, and in INS, it's out there and it's here. And even for many students, they're not even logged on. They're going to go and they're going to turn the computer on, watch for 18 minutes, stop. And I put it on YouTube so you can do it at double speed to make sure, you just listen. Is this on the midterm? Is this on the midterm? No, no, no. And then you can go back and you can do it all kinds of different ways. And there are possibly, I'm still open, let's say, on the advantages of that, but there certainly are disadvantages of that as well. And the college and the post-secondary world are adapting to all of those changes. Okay, now, in the assignment description, there's one sentence that I already had there that I think I'm going to go back to look at previous year's answers to see the extent to which this was followed. I wrote about halfway through, the starting point of this assignment asks you to think about your own experience of belonging. Where do you belong? With whom do you belong? When and where and with whom do you not belong? What is belonging like under this current social and legal conditions? Now, a starting point is, initially this lecture was going to be about starting points because that's a crucial feature of dialectic as Hegel wrote it, but it's taken me 25 years of study to more clearly figure out ways that I don't yet understand it. So I thought another hour of dialectic and would just be way too much. So I just want to call to your attention that this sentence is in the middle and that a starting point can happen anywhere in an essay. The starting point does not have to be the opening sentence. The starting point, so ask yourselves, what was the starting point of you writing this essay? It is, so an example of, now that I think about it, a dialectical example of this is, if you, in popular culture, so on TV shows and in movies, often what will happen is if the narrative, if the storyline involves a writer writing something, often what it'll do is you'll see them typing and they'll type out the title, then they'll go to page 1, and then they'll say, chapter 1, page 1, and then they'll start writing the story. No story's ever been written that way. That's not how stories happen. That's not what writers do. Writers, maybe some writers have as an exercise that kind of thing, but they know that that's not the starting point. They've had this idea in their head that's been bugging them since their second novel, and so they write that. Or they've never written a novel. They don't even believe about themselves that they are novelists, but they want to try. So they write and they write, and then they rewrite and they rewrite. A starting point is, for really writing, there is no starting point. You've always already started. If you feel stuck for this assignment, if you are worried about, the cat's out of the bag, if you're worried, as you should be a little bit, about simply using that example as a template, do this. Start thinking about this. Don't start writing about this. Ask yourself these questions and then figure out ways that answers to those questions will allow you to use that essay as a template. And so, yeah, that'll be, that's mostly what I wanted now. Let me just see what's coming. Okay. So in particular, there are a couple of areas that I want to call to your attention. None of them are mandatory. You certainly don't have to use all of them, but I think these are different ways that you will, that will, I want to call attention to you, general level categories that you can use to identify for yourselves some specifics that you can include in the course reflection to make it your course reflection. So multiple identities, it's a feature that is increasingly addressed in and covered by social science, that many people, maybe everybody, experiences their own personal identity in multiple registers. I think I mentioned it in this class, I've mentioned in other classes, I'm a father and I'm also a son. My mom is still alive, and in terms of, and I have brothers, so I'm a brother and I'm a son and I'm a father. And so those three different identities interact often easily enough for me, but sometimes there's I'm pulled in different directions as a result of my commitment to being a son, or being a brother, or being a father. That's just one example that I think that I think many of you can more or less easily enough identify with. Ethnicity also. I grew up as a, when I was 6 or 7, we moved to an Anglophone neighborhood, and my name is Antoine. It's an identifiably French name. This is in the context of Quebec in the late 1960s, when Quebec nationalism was finally, well, from my nationalist, I guess, point of view, was finally getting off the ground, but it hadn't happened yet in the Anglo neighborhood that I lived in. And so being French was a term that was regularly used as an insult. Like if you did something stupid, you were doing something French. And when 8-year-olds say idiotic things that they don't even really know what it means, most of my neighbors had never met a French person, a French-speaking person, when they met me. And so they didn't know that I would be insulted. And I spoke English as well as they did. I grew up bilingual. So they couldn't tell from the way I spoke that I was French. They didn't even think of French as a language, actually. French was just otherness. And so this split, this ethnic split or linguistic split, is part of my background. And some of you will have some version of that experience where you speak, some of you, obviously I don't know, I'm guessing that some of you perhaps speak to your parents in another language, but you speak at work and at school in English, or you have friends of one religion or one language and so on. Your identities are multiple, and your sense of belonging operates to some degree anyway across those different identities. There's a kind of generation, not quite generational, but and again, I may have brought it up before. If I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But transitions in our life occur. So when you went from elementary school to high school, for some of us, we go to a high school where our elementary school friends didn't go. I went from an elementary, I went to school downtown Montreal, but I went to high school in downtown Montreal, but I went to elementary school in the suburbs. And so nobody from my elementary school was in the same high school. It was all new people for me. So I had the opportunity to, and the, more or less the requirement to kind of reinvent myself. And my friends at home were different from my friends at school. So I had a different version of belonging at school than I had at home. And when I went from high school to university, the same sort of thing. And these transitions, when we reflect on those transitions, that'll give you the opportunity to compare different ways that you've experienced belonging, to compare different ways that you've experienced not belonging. And other of the categories we're looking at. Some of you will have, I know in the past, we've had students who came to high school in Canada from another country. And so that their migration experience occurred in adolescence. Other students, this is their migration experience. This is, you know, some students, I don't know, in our course specifically, but for some students, January might have been the first time they were ever in Canada. And the January start date of our course might have been their first experience. It's a Tuesday, so our class might have been their first class ever in a Canadian institution. That kind of transition and the uncertainty, do I belong? Thinking of it even in terms of belonging isn't always the way that people are going to reflect on their experience. I'm inviting you to reflect on it in those terms. And religious affiliation as well. Another component has to do with systemic structures of power. Capitalism or neoliberalism, more or less the same thing. Colonialism, slightly different thing, but these are different ways of analyzing, two of the three of which I spent some time discussing in class, mostly the connection between Canadian immigration policy and those larger systemic structures of power. But your position in that is also one way of providing some details around your sort of entry point into reflecting on the course. So is it Oman you were in, or Dubai?
Oman.
Oman, right. So you being in Oman and then coming here, that's, you know, a 3-sentence version of neoliberalism. How did your parents end up in Oman? I'm not asking you to answer this. I'm just, you know, to think about. Your parents were in Oman, and you mentioned, and I've had students mention similar things about Dubai anyway, but I think Oman and Dubai share this feature that a great deal of the people who work in Oman and a great deal of the people who work in Dubai are not from Oman. They're not from Dubai. And the legal structures in Oman and Dubai mean that you never will be part of Oman or Dubai. You were in Oman and now you're here. And in Canada, the legal framework, to pick one framework, the legal framework within which that occurs, unlike the legal framework in Oman, is more open-ended, not as open-ended perhaps as it could be, but more open-ended. You can become a Canadian citizen. It's not nearly as difficult, on my understanding anyway, for you to become a Canadian citizen than it would have been for you to become a citizen of Oman.
You know, in just for knowledge purposes, in Oman, you can become a citizen even if you have stayed 20+ years and contributed to the Omani economy. Omani or Emirati, you can't.
Cannot, right, yeah.
Either you need to open a business to get like a business visa, or you need to get married.
Right.
And the LGBTQ is not allowed. That's like criminal. So
Say that again, what?
there, being gay or being,
Oh, I see, yeah.
that's completely
Right.
illegal. It's a criminal offense,
Yeah.
all of that. So you need to either get married to have a visa, a passport, be considered an Omani citizen. Women are not allowed properties. You can have it because my husband gave it to me. I can't have it on my own.
Right.
I can support my family as a single woman. Like I need to have a man beside me, vouching for me,
Right,
for me to do other things.
right,
Like I can't be alone in Oman and have my kids with me.
right.
So this is a hypothetical situation.
Sure, well, right, that's what I took you to be describing. But I gave the example of Oman specifically because you had mentioned it, and because it's an example of the way neoliberalism and colonialism inform not just the details of abstract Canadian immigration law, but they inform the course of your life to some degree. And so that's an example for other students to consider if you're looking for ways to bring in course content and connect it to your life experience, you could consider that, that particular thing. And even if you weren't born in Oman, as I imagine most students in our course were not. Were you born in Oman? Not even. So wherever you were born, it's, you know, everyone here, all the members of our class were born somewhere, right? And their parents were also born somewhere, not necessarily the same place. Although some of the students in our class, they might be born where their great grandparents were born, right? So for some people, their families have been in the same place for a long time. But increasingly, one of the measures of globalization is that a larger and larger percentage of the global population does not live where their great grandparents live. There's more and more movement of the global population, and it comes to a greater, and over the last number of years anyway, that trend seems to be accelerating. It's still the case that most people on Earth live where their great grandparents live. But just at Seneca College, that's not the case for a bunch of different kinds of reasons. And some of those reasons have been discussed in our course. Why? What is it about a post-secondary institution that in Ontario in 2023 has a population from all around the world? That has to do with capitalism and neoliberalism anyway. So another component that I might handle a bit differently the next time I teach this course has to do with that I might deal in a more theoretically explicit way. The two news assignments required of you to consult the news, but you can reflect on ways that news media stories might have had an impact on how it is you see yourselves or this kind of thing. Right. Okay. So that's it basically. So I'm keen in many ways, keener even than I normally am, to see how students are going to go ahead and do this. I can't get all the way. I know I'm being recorded here, so I want to be super careful about this. I don't want to encourage anyone to use ChatGPT. I would rather that you not use ChatGPT at all for this assignment, or for any part of the work that we're doing, until the college have a better handle on how to integrate the reality of artificial intelligence into the work that we ask you to do. But the idea of a template, that's not the end of the world. It's not at all the end of the world, and in a way, it's possibly, I can't see immediately the downside of it, but so what the hell? It's not like I can stop you anyway, but that document that I've posted in Blackboard you can use it as a template. Let's see what happens. If you find that helpful to produce your answer, I will be, of course, looking at that, but that all by itself will not count. I will not count that as cheating. As long as you've done that extra bit that I'm describing of working the categories that answer includes through, on the one hand, your own personal experience, and on the other hand, the substance of the concepts that were discussed by Treblecock and Kelly, by Bowder, and by the other readings that I've posted. So, the last thing I want to, or the next thing, let's say, the number of words, let me just go to that. I didn't give a number of words, did I?
You said max 1,000. It's on the blackboard.
Okay, good. So yeah, maximum 1,000. But if you write more, I'm not sure. I never know really what to do with the maximum, minimum, and all of this. I'm not going to count them, although the machine will count them for me. And if you go over, there won't be a penalty. So I'm going to change that from maximum. I'm going to say suggested length 1,000, because I don't want to, if you write 1,500 words, if you write 2,000 words, that's fine. That's not going to be any problem at all. But you don't need to go that big in order to be able to accomplish everything that I think you need to accomplish to demonstrate to me that you've achieved the learning outcome associated with this component of the assignment, of the course, I mean. So next week there won't be a lecture. What I'm gonna log on to Blackboard and to Zoom at 10:45 from home, and I'll be available to answer any question anyone has. But there's no more material to learn. There's now just, you have to produce those last two assignments, and that's it.
No exam, right?
No exam. Yeah, that would be a faster thing to. Oh yeah, and there's a 60% exam. I was kidding about all the other stuff. No. Okay, so are there any questions out in asynchronous land? So you all heard me, I hope, out in asynchronous land. There won't be I won't be in class next week, and there won't be any presentation organized, but I will be online from 10:45 until 1:30 in my office at home, available for questions and consultation. So yes, Miriam, I will check your submission. I don't think I need to do that in public, so I'll check your submission. I'm going to go back to my office now. I'll check it there and I'll let you know. Do you mean the final submission for the group literature? Right. Okay. So yes, I will do that in 25 minutes or 20 minutes. I'm going to go get a copy and then I'll do that. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, especially the people who came to class. I like that a lot better. I think it is a lot better, but I'm an old dog who has trouble learning new tricks, so who knows? But I'm grateful for the students who were online also. So thank you for this semester. Okay. Stop share. And